Uh-oh. Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, I'm bringing in someone that knows a lot about sports, can give you all the stats, and does it in a very entertaining way and also a very creative way. That would be Miss Arabia. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Mike. How are you?
I am doing just great on this rainy day in Nashville. Of course, I'm pretty sure it's rainy across everywhere in the South because, of course, hurricane remnants all over the place. But
Exactly.
yeah, it's a lot of people with power out, so I'm very thankful that I do have power.
Yeah, we do
But
too. I'll take the power over some of the other places that kind of don't have electricity right now. So, doing really well comparatively.
right. So, we're gonna of course kind of sidebar. We're gonna sit that down for a while. We're gonna talk some football, bring some joy to people's lives a little bit. On this episode of Touring the AFC South, of course, we're going to talk about the AFC South and what all is going on and what all isn't going on in the AFC South. But of course, first we do have to talk about. I have to open the show with a get off your chest segment, and this one, I just want to talk about the Thursday night football game. The Dallas Cowboys and the New York Football Giants. Now, if you watch that game, the Dallas Cowboys won the game. It was, a little climactic towards the end. Malik Neighbors, thank goodness he's okay. He does have concussion, but thank goodness he's okay. It looked pretty grim when he landed like that and missed the pass to potentially get the first down. But let's just be honest. That was a bad game. That was a bad game. I mean, watching it, you had CeeDee Lamb make some plays and things like that, and you had Malik Neighbors do a few things, but I was not lifted out of my chair for any of the things that really happened the entire game. And it's reflective on both teams. The Cowboys weren't really an exciting watch. They really weren't. It was kind of a and for a team that, well, I guess some think are going to be competing for a division crown and, potentially go in the playoffs and do some things, they didn't look like that team that some think they are. Just leave it at that. Now, let's switch over to these Giants, the New York Football Giants. They miss Saquon Barkley more and more by the day. That offense, it has zero identity. I cannot tell you who their starting tight end is because he really does not make an imprint on the game. Besides Malik Neighbors and Devin Singletary, and of course knowing who Daniel Jones is, other than that, I know nothing about that offense except for maybe the offensive line, but not for good reasons. So, you know, I don't know what's going on. I know Brian Daboll trying to do whatever he can. He's being the offensive, but no. And then defensively, I still don't understand how Brian Burns hasn't been unlocked on that defense. I mean, he's there, but I kind of forgot he was playing for the New York Giants because no splash plays. Now, I don't think it's all on him. Some of it's on him, but I did see this defensive coordinator in Tennessee last year that's actually the defensive coordinator for the Giants right now. And this is kind of becoming a trend for him. Not really having a guy that, jumps off the screen or creating ways for guys to make plays along with, putting them in positions to succeed. So to me, both teams going nowhere. I don't think the Cowboys, even if they make the playoffs, they're really not going to threaten in the playoffs, in my opinion. And the Giants, they're having an identity crisis as a team and as an organization right now because of one bad decision to pay Daniel Jones. That's what and he didn't play bad last night. He didn't play horrible, but it wasn't like he was a huge difference maker in the game. And that's what you need at a quarterback position. You need a huge difference maker, and on some teams you do, not all teams, but you need them to be able to make plays that stand out and make plays that help you win games. And I don't think Daniel Jones makes enough plays to help you win games. So, two sad teams, sad Thursday night football game. I'm done with it. I'm glad it's over. You got any thoughts, Arabian?
Wow. Do I? First of all, the Cowboys are one of those teams, of course. They usually do really well in the regular season. And given that it's for them, they've started their week 4, it still may be too early to say that this season is a wash for them. But given what they've looked like through 4 weeks of football, they don't look like, even if they do pick things up towards the end of this regular season, that they're looking like NFC contenders, like they'll make a deep playoff run, which is, of course, what Cowboys fans and people from the organization are looking at. They want to take the next step in the organization and not just be a really good regular season team. And as of right now, again, it's still relatively early in the season. Really good teams have yet to take their final form. A lot of teams are still trying to warm up. But given what they look like through 4 weeks of football, they don't look too hot. They barely look like they have this division on lock. So they would for sure have to pick it up. What I will say is that last season they also struggled offensively in the first half of the season. So it's not impossible that that offense picks up and their team kind of catches on. But they don't look great. I'll say that. And then the Giants, like you said, they really have no identity. You can kind of name Daniel Jones, Devin Singletary, they acquired in the offseason. Malik Neighbors, of course, their first round draft pick has been really, really great. Even if you want to do like a Darius Slayton who carried last year like a pretty heavy load as far as like carries and targets and stuff like that. But there, and like you said, Brian Burns was like a huge pickup. I mean, that was a huge pickup for the Giants in the offseason, but has yet to really make any splash plays. Like you said, like, oh, Brian Burns is like a difference maker and really elevating that defense and making a huge difference. We haven't seen that yet. So the Giants are also not, of course, I mean, I don't think anyone expected them to be any kind of contender, but they're not looking great either. And I saw this on the slate for a primetime game, double entendre with it being on Prime Video and a primetime game. But I'm like, this really could have been a Sunday at 1:00 game. I did not need this on primetime. This is not one of those games that really stuck out to me. Like, sure, it's a division game and things can get really exciting and surprising in a division, but I didn't need this. And the Cowboys, if I'm correct, are tied with the 49ers and the Jets for the most primetime games this season. I think they have 6 primetime games. Jets, I get. Aaron Rodgers. The 49ers, sure, over the last 5 years, they've gone to NFC championship games and they went to the Super Bowl last year. Like, I get it. People are excited to see them. They've been doing really well. The Cowboys, I mean, they're a really popular team. Probably one of the most recognizable sports logos in the world. I mean, they have a lot of fans. They garner a lot of revenue for the NFL. Outside of that, I did not need to see the Cowboys and the Giants on primetime. So I expected this to kind of be like a snooze fest, but, pretty bad game all around for both teams.
Let me tell you what this game was. And I've definitely talked about this. This game was a date night game. The reason why this was a date night game, be like, okay, cool. You see this on schedule, be like, baby, I don't care nothing about football. Let's go on this date. That's what this game was. This was a date night game. That's what this was. But of course, we're gonna leave that game down. I'm pretty sure we have used too much airtime to talk about a game that really wasn't that good. But we're gonna talk about these football teams. We're gonna go around the NFL right now. Since I know you talk about all the teams on all 32. So we're going to start with a surprising team, which is the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think anybody had it on their bingo card that the Minnesota Vikings would be 3-0. I surely didn't, because if I did, I would have been a millionaire or a billionaire by playing the lottery. But did you even expect this? How shocked are you about the Vikings are 3-0?
I'm very surprised. I was going to say the exact same thing. I don't think anyone, outside of maybe some Vikings fans who are really high on their team or maybe saw something that the rest of us did not, I don't think anyone saw them starting 3-0, being at the top of that division and performing the way that they have. If you look at what they've done over the last 3 weeks, week one, they play the Giants. The Giants are who they are. We know that at home. Okay, fine. 28-6, that doesn't really signal world beater for the Vikings, like considering who they played. Week two, they played the 49ers. Okay, they play them at home. All right, beat them 23-17. It's still early in the season, right? Like the 49ers could also be trying to get their football legs about them and trying to carry through the season. Cool. So now they're 2-0. Then week three, they get to the Texans, who I think everyone was expecting to be a pretty good team given their performance last season. 34-7. I don't think anyone had that happening in week three, 34-7 against the Texans. Sure, they were at home again. Sam Darnold has been playing pretty well. So, yeah, it is surprising. And I think a theme that will come up throughout my conversation when you and I are speaking is that it's still very early in the season. And I say that over and over again because, I mean, it's true. A lot of good teams are still trying to figure things out and catching fire later on. So, do I think that this 3-0 start for the Vikings means that they are definitely going to win their division, that they're definitely going to go on a playoff run and all those things? Not necessarily, but you can't complain about a 3-0 start. So, good for them.
Yeah, now one thing I can't whew, one thing I do need to take a look at too is you spoke of it is Sam Darnold. I think he drunk a little bit of that Joe Flacco juice in Minnesota. So he's 67.9% in terms of his completion percentage, 657 total yards in terms of throwing, and 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I mean, Sam Darnold, has he finally started to figure things out? Could it really happen?
You would love to see that, especially in an organization like the Minnesota Vikings, where they have JJ McCarthy sitting behind him. And if you draft your first round quarterback and you sit him, which I think they plan to do anyway before he was injured, but they plan to sit him anyway behind Sam Darnold, you would love to see your QB1 go out there and really figure things out and perform well so that QB2 is sitting and watching and learning and absorbing whatever it is that, is making him find success. So, I mean, good for Sam Darnold, but also good for the organization and for JJ McCarthy as well to be able to see that and learn from it and be able to absorb whatever's happening in that quarterback room.
Definitely an interesting thing. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention defense is really playing well. And I got to give props. I can't remember the guy's name, but he did the Usher dance in the video in the end zone. I don't know if you remember that. Did you see him doing the little tick dance or whatever?
I was gonna say yes.
That was the. I didn't know. At first, I was like, I don't know. I was like, what is he doing? And then I saw the time. I was like, okay. Light bulb went off. I was like, oh, okay, he's doing the Usher. I was like, I got to give him props for that because I don't think I would have ever attempted to do that dance ever.
Yeah, ever. I know. So I know Usher does it, and I know Omarion also does it in his Icebox video. So it's kind of been like a social media throwback moment to Usher and Omarion. So that was funny.
Yeah, I was like, wow, okay then. Okay. Now another thing that was surprising and kind of I guess a throwback moment for him personally was Malik Willis. I mean, Malik Willis is 2-0 as a Green Bay Packers starter. I know we're heavy in the NFC West, NFC North right now, but hey, we just ride with me, folks. Ride with me. I mean, I did not expect him to come out and be 2-0. I'll say this for transparency. I've talked to Malik before. I've actually interviewed him a few times here in Nashville. Really good guy. Really, I would say he's very positive person. So I wanted him to do well, but this is far beyond the expectation that I had for him coming into a team that he just got traded to right before the season. And going 2-0, and especially the performance he had here in Nashville. I mean, he just went he did his thing that game. I mean, rushing for 73 yards, I believe is what it was. And then also what was it? Throwing for 202 yards, 13 and 19, including a couple pinpoint passes that, of course, I know some Titans fans probably like, where was that when he was here? But I mean, can you just talk about this wow, the wow factor of Malik Willis coming in and just doing his thing? And this the props to Matt LaFleur for being able to coach him up and putting him in positions to succeed.
Yeah, so right before we get to the Packers, I do want to close the loop on the Vikings defense and shout out to them because they only allowed 6 points week one, only gave up 17 points against the 49ers, and only gave up 7 points against the Texans. So definitely shout out to that Vikings defense, helping the offense, and the offense also putting on a show. So we'll leave that to be that. But for the Packers, the narrative has been for some reason around him coming in that, should Jordan Love be worried? And is his job at stake when they see that he's coming in and still winning games? But I'm like, this is exactly what you want your QB2 to do. If for some reason your QB1 goes down and he's unavailable, this is exactly what, as an organization, you want to see your backup quarterback to come in and do. And he's doing a great job. This is a testament actually to that Packers offense, because it doesn't just take one guy going down for now you to be a bad team and start losing games. This is exactly what you want for your team, for you to be able to lose a guy, have your backup come in and still win games. Because we see in Miami, that's not necessarily happening. And it could be for a myriad of reasons. It's two totally different situations. But we do see Tua go down. We see Skylar Thompson go in. And we see it kind of a lot all over the place. But when your QB2 comes in and you're not looking too good, it's not a good testament to the overall balance of your team, of your offense, of playing 4 quarters of complementary football. So it's next man up. He's come in and he's performed his job well enough to win games. And good for him. So I'm really happy to see that. I'm really rooting for him. I think Jordan Love is also very happy to see that. It kind of takes the pressure off of him as far as like him feeling a need to hurry up and come in and rush his process, because when he does come in, we want him to be 100% healthy and ready to go. And then, QB2 can sit back and if he's needed, come up again. So I think this is a great news for Packers fans that their offense is able to have their backup quarterback come in and still win games.
Yes, definitely. I definitely want to mention that moment. They are 2-1, and Malik played a factor in that, and I had to show him props. But
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the floor. Your Commanders are doing a few things. Jay Daniels, did his thing on Monday Night Football against the Bengals, including that game sealing touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin, which, honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how he dropped that in so perfectly with under such duress. I mean, how excited are you? Not necessarily about the start of the team, but Jaden Daniels as potentially being the franchise quarterback that you all have been looking for a while.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you 2 versions. I'm gonna give you my high version, like up in the sky version, and then I'm gonna come down and ruin the party a little bit. So let's start high. I am extremely excited about Jaden Daniels, and I'm so happy that we got him. We've seen, I would even venture to say, more than just flashes, because he's showed it throughout, kind of when he did play in the preseason. We've seen it kind of in training camp, and now we're seeing it translate to actual games. We're like, this guy might be the real deal. I need to see more. I need to see more consistency against really good defenses to really be 100% like, no, he is him for real. But what we've seen so far, I really can't complain. Not only am I super excited about my quarterback, which we have not had a franchise quarterback since Kirk Cousins, really. I'm excited for Terry McLaurin because he'll have someone consistently throwing to him and someone to build chemistry with, and someone that he can actually, form a relationship with on and off the field, which he hasn't had. There's been a carousel of quarterbacks in Washington. Not only am I excited for that, I'm really excited for my general manager, Adam Peters, who comes over from the 49ers. Adam Peters was the assistant general manager and helped draft several players in the later rounds. He drafted guys like George Kittle. He drafted guys like Fred Warner. He drafted guys like Hufanga. He drafted guys like Brock Purdy later in the rounds. So he has a lot of experience drafting really, really well. And so far, not only did we get Jaden Daniels, number 2 overall pick, but throughout that draft, he came in knowing that we needed some help with the offensive line. And he got Brandon Coleman out of TCU, who has been performing really, really well. I mean, it's really like one hand washes the other. If you have a good quarterback, you want to be able to protect your rookie quarterback. And left tackle Brandon Coleman, rookie, has been doing really, really well as well. So if we hit on both a quarterback and a left tackle in the same draft, that accelerates our success by a lot. I'm excited about certain aspects of my defense. I don't want to get there too much because that's where I ruined the party a little bit. But our linebackers, I will say, have been getting a notch better and better a bit every week with Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu. I've seen some great leadership out of those guys, kind of like even in the locker room, and the performance in the field, especially with the run, has been pretty good. And this is the part where, also one other high thing I'm on is Cliff Kingsbury. We've heard several people, of course, kind of have to eat their words and say that he keeps it simple for Jaden and it's a college offense. But let's say that that's true. That's all that he needs right now. Let's not overcomplicate things. Let's not fix something that's broken. Cliff Kingsbury, lays out a playbook that's great for Jaden. He's able to have some RPO. He's able to throw downfield. He's able to hand the ball off to Austin Eckler, who hopefully will be back soon, Brian Robinson Jr., and really complement that pass game with the ground game. But, I'm really excited about Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. They've done a good job calling plays. They've done a good job managing the clock and trusting their guys as well. Going forward on 4th and 4, usually we would kind of bring out our special teams for that, but they're like, no, we're going for it. Our offense is clicking. Let's go for it. This is where I ruined the party, and I'm so sorry. Call it PTSD, call it me being pragmatic, call it whatever you want. But I think we also still have to keep our expectations where they are. And remember, we really still are a developing team. So that means that we should now expect to win the division. We should now expect to make the playoffs, and make a playoff run just because we've been playing well so far. We have the Cardinals in Arizona next, and then we have the Browns at home. And then after that, we have the Ravens. So our next 3 games, we could go on a nice little 2-game run, depending on what that looks like. Of course, Cliff Kingsbury is going up against his former team where he was a head coach, this time as an offensive coordinator. Had really positive things to say about the Cardinals organization. But I think Commanders fans should be excited, but we also should make sure that we're staying even keel. We can't get too high when our team does really, really well, and we can't get too low when our team runs into challenges. So I'm excited, but I also am staying kind of like neutral and in the middle and allowing myself to remember that we still are very much developing, and we still have some room to grow, especially defensively.
Okay. Well, we have one viewer and listener that is actually very, very glad to hear your knowledge today. That would be Vanessa. She jumped in and said, I love you, girl. Knowledge.
Hi, Vanessa. Thank you. Love you too.
And then also, of course, she said, love Malik. Hope they keep him. Momentum. So, definitely wanted to bring those comments in from the Torn AFC South inbox. Of course, we have not hit the commercial break, but she did have one more question for you in the inbox. She said, do you have a podcast? So if you want to take the floor there, you can.
So I don't have like a real podcast or show, but I do present information on social media. You can follow me at All32NFL. It should be right there on my Instagram. Contemplating having a podcast to be determined, but for right now, I just post things on social media, Instagram, mostly TikTok.
All right. Well, of course, we did run a little over in the first segment of the show, but that's okay. We were getting a lot of knowledge. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to get into the AFC South. Get into that, which we both, I guess we kind of looking a little wrong right now when it comes to that. But when we get back, we'll talk about that on Touring the AFC South.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off all these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get these the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South. And like I mentioned before the break, we got to talk about the AFC South. Now, me and you both talked about potentially the AFC South being a surprise division, being probably one of the toughest divisions. Well, right now they're a little tough on our eyes because you have two 0-3 teams, a 1-2 team, and a 2-1 team that got blown out by the Minnesota Vikings. That would be the Houston Texans. So we're going to start with one of the teams that, is 0-3, and that would be the Tennessee Titans. Now, we have talked about Will Levis and the issues he's had have been publicized very much in terms of course, the underhand throw that the Bears took back for a touchdown and the pick six that happened against the Packers, and of course, the underhanded fumble when he's getting tackled that basically gave the ball up and lost 3 points against the Jets. That's been talked about. But I will say this, though. I'm just going to ask, what do you think of him so far? I know those things have happened, but what do you think of him so far? Because I will say that, he has had those mistakes, but he has also had stretches in games where he has actually played well and played good football. So what are your just overall thoughts on Will Levis so far?
Yeah, I don't think he's like a lost cause. I don't think that we should be looking into benching him or like replacing him in season or anything like that. But what I will say is that there needs to be a bit more of a cost benefit analysis when he's making these decisions in the game. He's playing aggressively. You want to see your quarterback kind of unafraid and open and free on the field, but just maybe he should be a little bit more conservative and making sure that he protects the ball more, because those kinds of mistakes can't continue to happen throughout the season. It's still really early. It's not too late for him to pick it up, but I really think that he needs to be a little bit more protective of the ball, play a little bit more consistently when it comes to, not turning the ball over. But he's not a lost cause. He just has a few things that he needs to tweak, and that can come up to him and also coaching.
Got you. Well, one thing that is definitely interesting with this team is the offensive line, mainly the right side of the offensive line. And Nicholas Petit-Frere actually got benched in the last game against the Packers, and Jalen Duncan went in. And from all indications, or there are some indications that from what Brian Callahan talked about after the game against the Packers, he talked about Jalen Duncan getting an opportunity to start in place of Nicholas Petit-Frere. Do you think some of that contributes to just maybe the inconsistencies in that offense, the right side of the line, or just do you think it's more of just execution across the board of the offense?
I think two things can be true at once, for sure. I think it's both. And when it comes to the offensive line, like you said, Brian Callahan came out in a press conference on Monday and said that it's really that right side that's kind of been giving them trouble. If you had to choose between the left side or the right side of your offensive line giving you trouble, you would prefer it to be that right side. You want to protect your quarterback's blind side and make sure that left side is on lock. So that's good news, a silver lining, I guess, for that offensive line. But like you said, they did sit Petit-Frere in the third quarter. He gave up a strip sack and messed up on a block there. Jalen Duncan came in, but honestly wasn't that much better. He hasn't ruled out Petit-Frere coming in the game and saying that he for sure won't be playing and won't be starting. So, but I don't think the depth at that position will get too much better. You could have maybe some better snaps and better reps, but they may look to find someone to come in there, because I'm not sure if things like this continue that they have anyone to really step up and do a whole lot better.
Well, one guy that I got to give credit to, Sharp Sports, he wrote an article, and basically said Dylan Radins. Dylan Radins actually was an offensive tackle before he was off guard. Could put him there and then move Brunskill, which is he's a backup now. He was a starter at right guard last year. Could put him back at right guard again. So that's another option perhaps as well, but we will see what happens.
Yeah,
when it comes
definitely
to
worth. I would say it's worth giving it a shot to see what happens. Absolutely.
Right. Just want to give credit to Sharp Sports there. He came up with the theory there. He wrote what some people have probably been thinking about in terms of that right side of the offensive line. Now, of course, defensively, we do have to talk about the Titans. They were number one in defense until they faced the Packers and Malik Willis. Of course, had a few breakdowns that game. Gave up some big third downs, kind of basically memories of last year when every third down they gave up a big play. Even with 3rd and 15, give up a big play. Do you think it's maybe an aberration as to what happened, or do you think that's basically just, I guess, the product of the offense not being on the field quite as much as the offensive coordinator would probably like?
I think it's really both. It's really hard for your defense when your offense is kind of doing a 3 and out, and they're just kind of getting on the field, kind of blundering, and then you're punting the ball. So now your defense is tired. They're eating up a lot of that time of possession when it comes to your possession. So, and that's not an excuse. Your defense should not be so tired, especially this early in the season, that you're having all of these blunders. So not an excuse, but it certainly doesn't help if your offense isn't performing and isn't on the field for that long. So I don't think it's a good sign for the defense. They for sure need to make some tweaks and make them soon, because we're creeping into the middle of the season. And it's only going to get harder from here.
All right. I'm going to ask one question and put this one towards you. How much of a chance do you give them on Monday Night Football to beat the Tua-less Miami Dolphins?
They have a chance. I mean, this is one of the many reasons why I love the sports. It really is any given Sunday, and in this case, any given Monday or any given Thursday. I mean, Skylar Thompson and this Dolphins offense doesn't look like world beaters. They look like they can be had. The Titans could catch the Dolphins on a bad day. And so this isn't a complete lost cause. I really would not be surprised if this game goes either way. The Titans could leave with a L, or they could leave with a W. So they have a chance. It's not like this is an automatic L. They for sure have a chance.
We did have another question from the tour in the AFC South inbox. Vanessa wants to know, how do you feel about Simmons, speaking of Jeffrey Simmons?
I guess, honestly, I haven't watched enough film of him to be able to speak of him specifically. I only can speak to him as a part of that entire unit, but it's too early for me to have a super strict verdict about anyone. I want to see more, and I will have to look at his film specifically to give you a definite answer about him.
He's I would say from watching him, he's had a couple penalties the last couple of games that have kind of cost him points. However, I will say he is the leader of that defense, and he's probably the most outspoken one of the defense. And he does all the dirty work right now, because be honest, I mean, he's got to do the dirty work in order for this team to be successful, and he's doing that. But, of course, the team's not being successful, but the defense per se is being successful as well. I think he's still a great player. I think he's still one of the top 5 interior defensive linemen in the NFL. But just right now, of course, with the team not having a great record, of course, people are not going to talk about him a lot. And then plus Tennessee being in a small market as well.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And I think that's one of the keys. A lot of times we do see teams who don't perform well. Even players who perform well on that losing team do kind of lose a little bit of shine. But there are times where there are those exceptions. Everybody can recognize that Malik Neighbors is a dog on a generally bad team. So I think Simmons will be completely fine.
Definitely. Of course, we do have to talk about another team that's 0-3, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I did a poll on Twitter about which team were people more concerned about. Overwhelmingly, people said the Jaguars more than the Titans. I mean, if you look at it, the main reason I would say people are probably concerned about this team is because they're on average, $55 million a year, and you're getting 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and also just want to throw out there, all of his numbers except for turnovers are less than Will Levis. Will Levis actually has more touchdowns, has more yards thrown, better quarterback rating, better completion percentage than actually Trevor Lawrence. So how concerned are you that they're paying Trevor Lawrence this amount of money, yet they're getting this amount of production? I mean, honestly, I know it's not just all him, but when you're a quarterback that's getting paid this amount of money, they're looking at you to make up for those different things that don't happen on the field.
Yes. So there are a few different parts to this. Number one, just to get this out the way, yes, the quarterback market is what it is. And a lot of the reason why these quarterbacks are getting paid this way is because the market dictates that. And in some way, organizations' hands are tied as far as how much they can pay their quarterbacks, because there's kind of a quarterback shortage as far as how many really, really good quarterbacks you can realistically bring onto your team to be that difference maker. So just with that out the way, now we can actually say, but at the same time, for this much money, these teams are looking for a return on investment. And if they're paying you $275 million, they do expect you to perform a lot better than he has been. Week 1, they lost 20-17 to the Dolphins. And at that point, they did have Tua. So that wasn't too concerning. It's week 1. Then week 2, they lose to the Browns at home. The Browns aren't a super great team so far, so that really, in their mind, should have been a win. And then week 3, they lose to the Bills, a good team, a playoff team, an AFC contending team, 3-0 team. So with that being said, they're week 1 and week 3, we can kind of sort of look at and be a bit understanding of it. These are 2 AFC playoff teams. But week 2 at home, losing to the Browns, and the way that Trevor Lawrence performed. Let me see. He's had just as many interceptions as he has touchdowns in that Bills game, threw for 178 yards. The Jaguars defense allowed the Bills to throw 4 touchdowns to 4 different skill players. So on both sides of the ball, they're not performing super well. This also begs the question, is Doug Peterson on the hot seat? Do I think he's on the hot seat? Not necessarily, but I do think people are like, okay, like, what are we going to do? Because if we look at what he did in Philadelphia, sure, he won a Super Bowl, and sure, he, brought some fire to the organization, but he also wasn't making great decisions, which is how he landed in Jacksonville. He kept playing Carson Wentz over Jalen Hurts and kind of forcing the Carson Wentz issue instead of trying his other quarterback. So I think Doug Peterson and just even the owner and organization are going to be looking at them over the next few weeks to see how they shake things up and how they perform. Otherwise, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some personnel changes in one way or another during the season in Jacksonville.
Well, he definitely hinted at that after the game. So I'm interested to see. I think one guy they're really, really missing offensively is Evan Ingram. He's been out with a hamstring injury the last few weeks, and he is like the security blanket for Trevor. And of course, he had over 100 receptions last year. So they're definitely missing him. One other guy that's missing in action, I just want to throw out there, is Christian Kirk. 10 receptions, 108 yards so far. But honestly, he has not been very effective. I know he was coming off an injury last season, core muscle surgery, and all those different things. And I've heard the reports about, training camp trying to get himself up to speed, things like that. But still, 10 receptions, 108 yards through 3 games. I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, it really reminds me of the Commanders' Terry McLaurin problem, where you have this person who is capable of a lot more. He's just really quiet. He's not getting looks. And that could be for a variety of reasons. It could be because they have this person circled on their game notes. They've planned for him, and so they're locking him down. But in that way, you would think it would open up your wide receiver 2 or your tight end or the ground game or something else. But we don't necessarily see that happening because I think ETN also, in some regard, hasn't been as productive as we would hope that he would be. If your quarterback is struggling in one way or another, you would like to give it to a guy like ETN, who I think is really phenomenal, and rely on on your ground game. But and it also could be he's not doing a good job separating and getting open. It could be that he's not running his routes correctly, or that he's being missed when Trevor Lawrence is going through his progressions, or that they're actually not planning for him. He's just not getting those looks. So it could be for a variety of reasons, but it for sure is concerning.
Very much, very much. And, with their 0-3 start, and I mean, some people had them finishing as high as second in this division.
Yeah.
Do you think that they can turn this around with how they're looking so far?
No. Well, actually, let me back that up. I said that really quickly, but I don't mean it I don't mean that. Because again, week 1 Dolphins, sure, cool. Week 2 Browns at home, that's concerning. That's concerning. But week 3 Bills, in Buffalo, that's kind of understandable. So yes, I do think they can turn it around, but we also got to look at the quality of these losses. They haven't shown anything in these losses that's like, oh, they were a penalty away. They were a 4th down conversion away. They were this thing away. It's kind of been like runaway games in some way. I know that Bills loss was 20-17, which also isn't bad. So it's really not looking good, but they can turn it around.
I'll say this. Now people had the Titans finishing last in this division, and the Jaguars. A lot of people had the Jaguars finishing as high as second. The difference between both of these teams so far is the Titans have been in all of these games they've lost. It's just mistakes on their behalf that has cost them. The Jaguars games, I mean, I know they were in the Dolphins game. I know they were in the game versus the Browns, but the Bills game, in no way, shape, or fashion were they ever in that game. Right. They were the only reason they were in that game is because it was on Monday Night Football and they get paid to play and show up on the sideline. That's where they were in the game. After that, they were out of that game from Jump Street. So, that's that's all I got on the Jaguars. But we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back and talk a little Colts and, of course, a little Texans. And boy, oh boy, it's going to be interesting talking about both of those on touring the AFC South.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, we are back on touring the AFC South. We're done the home stretch, and we're going to talk about the two teams that are in second and first. Of course, we're going to start with the second place team, as the Colts. Anthony Richardson, 49.3 completion percentage. Yuck. 3 TDs, 6 interceptions. Boy, oh boy, the rookie times. Now, for those that don't understand, he really didn't play his rookie season. Played 4 games, but really didn't make it through all 4 games. So this is his rookie season. Not necessarily the numbers you would think. The 49.3% completion percentage, that would sound good if it was like a 3-point shooting percentage in basketball. That would be acceptable. But in football, that ain't gonna get it done. So what do you think is going on with him? You just think it's the rookie haze, or just him trying to do too much, or what do you think is going on with him?
I think some of it is the rookie haze, as you say, and I'm allowing him a lot of grace because of that. Like you said, he played 4 games last season. We haven't seen a full season of healthy Anthony Richardson, so I'm allowing him grace in that regard. Everything else, do I feel like in some way he's trying to play hero ball? Sure. I think there's inconsistency, and we've seen that inconsistency since preseason. We saw one drive of him looking really polished, really great, and we've seen other drives him not looking so great. So he's playing very inconsistently. And like you said, 49.3 completion percentage, 50.2 QBR, 6 interceptions on 3 touchdowns. Now, for any rookie, usually you want to extend that kind of grace because they're still trying to figure things out and play at regular season NFL speed. So because of that, I'm allowing him a little bit of room. But if he doesn't pick things up, then the Colts really might have a problem. And we saw last season his backup come in and perform pretty well. They were just a couple games away from maybe, where they wanted to be. But that first game, that loss against the Texans, that's a division game, week 1. Like, that can be really, really tough. And they only lost 29-27. That's a 2-point difference. They were in that game away in Houston. Remember that 60-yard bomb that he had? Sacked 2 times. Then after that, a loss to the Packers and a win against the Bears. It's not a lost cause. What I will say in that first game, 9 for 19 throwing isn't great. And then that second game, 17 for 34, that's half of them. I mean, he's completing about half of his throws, and you want to see that increase as the weeks go. And that could be coaching. Maybe the coaches need to change up the playbook for him and just scheme up something different for him. But it's not looking great. But because it's his rookie season, I'm going to allow some grace.
Okay. Oh, just to throw it out there, the first game was actually it was in Indianapolis, so they still got to go to Houston. But I will say, definitely is it definitely is interesting looking for sure. It doesn't help him that he doesn't have a tight end that actually stands out and can catch passes because Kylan Granson. You have just a lot of either injured guys or guys that are not getting it done when it comes to that tight end position for them. Another guy that I don't think is getting it done right now is Michael Pittman Jr. Signed a 3-year, $70 million extension this offseason, $46 million guaranteed. Now, I'm not going to say he doesn't deserve his money because if people offer you money and they want to pay you to play that position and they want to pay you well, take the money. I am not mad at you. I am not pocket watching Mr. Michael Pittman Jr. However, what I am watching is 11 receptions, 88 yards so far. Now, I know he's had some opportunities to make some plays, and some of them have been errant throws from Anthony Richardson as well. But 11 for 88 through 3 games, and you're supposed to be the number 1 guy? What is going on?
Yeah, I don't have any excuse for this one. They haven't all been bad throws. They haven't all been he's just not getting targets. There are times where the opportunity is there for him, and he's just not taking advantage of it, and he has to step up. I mean, it's going to take more than just AR playing well for this offense to perform well. He also has to step up, and when he has the opportunity, take advantage of it. So there really is no excuse for him through 3 weeks of football. Week 4, okay, we need to see it, and we need to see it now.
Right. And then, of course, you have seen Jonathan Taylor back-to-back 100-yard games. First game, the Texans were definitely all hands on deck to shut him down. But last 2 games, 100+ yards. I just honestly, they should play through Jonathan Taylor more, in my opinion. I don't know if they kind of get lost. Like, for example, the Green Bay game, you're in the game, but then you decide to take Jonathan Taylor out and start passing the football. And I understand you want to do certain things, but you weren't out of the game enough to where you just abandoned the run game. Yep. And they basically with Sermon at running back and started throwing the football, and it's inexplicable type of stuff. I mean, is there something going on in there that we don't know about? Or just, why would you not focus on just Jonathan Taylor and let everything else permeate from there?
Yeah, so I understand that these days in 2024, this is more of a passing league, even though data shows that this year specifically is kind of not so far early in the season. A lot of teams have been running or have been running their offense through their ground game. But this is what you have your running back for. If your quarterback is struggling, there's nothing wrong with running your offense on the ground. It gives you more time of possession. It protects the ball for the most part, unless you've got some forced fumbles and losing the ball and whatnot. But there's nothing wrong with using the running back to run your offense. And I think that's so smart. It protects Anthony Richardson a lot more. And I completely agree. I think that's exactly what they should do. So I don't know if they want to run the points up on the board and get on the board early and quickly and try to do that hurry up offense kind of thing. But whatever it is that they have been doing, I don't think it's working. Keep your guy who's being very productive on the field. It almost seems obvious. So I don't know what's happening there, but they for sure need to rely on what's working for them in games, and what's working for them is clearly their ground game.
Right, right. And then what isn't working for them defensively is just about everything. It did work last week against the Chicago Bears, but
Yeah.
that also could be an anomaly
Yes.
because, Chicago Bears haven't necessarily looked great offensively, and their offensive line, we're not even going to get into that. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, do you, can you, I had ESPN.com Stephen Holder on. He covers the Colts. And he was just like, well, there's teams are spreading them out, but also they're just not getting it done. And I'm like, wow, they have the same pieces. Of course, DeForest Buckner's out for another couple games. But were you surprised at just the lack of run defense with this team? Teams just marching all over them. You had the first week you had Joe Mixon have a great game, and next week you have Josh Jacobs have a career game. And, of course, the Bears didn't, but of course, like I mentioned, the Bears have offensive line problems. So that's a whole other story. So, were you surprised by just this performance to start out with them?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I would say had it been that teams are throwing all over them, I would be a little bit more understanding. Defensive backs sometimes do take a while to warm up in the season. Cornerback, in my opinion, is the hardest position in football. A lot of teams' secondaries are in need. We've seen the wide receiver position increase in supply, increase in talent. And as far as the cornerback market, I don't think we've seen that same production as far as being able to match that. But as far as run defense and being able to defend the run for the Colts, I am slightly surprised. I think that they will need to increase that. Even though this is a passing league, you still need that element to your defense, and want to see them step up coming towards the middle of the season.
Yeah, somebody's got to step up there. And I want to see in the next game if that was just aberration, them against the Bears, or if they've really fixed things. I really want to see that. But, of course, got to switch over to the last team in the division, and not last because, they're in last place, just last because, I guess Texans fans would say we're saving the best for last. That's what they would say. But the Houston Texans, they're 2-1, but offensively, they just seem to be sputtering. Is it more new parts coming in? Is there new pressure coming? Are the false starts of Laramie Tunsil starting to catch up to them? What do you think is going on with them offensively? They just don't seem to be in sync.
For some reason, my spidey senses are tingling and telling me that I'm not worried. Like I'm really not worried about the Texans. This isn't the start that you want coming off of last season, where you had CJ Stroud performing really, really well. You had DeMeco Ryans performing really, really well. You have Bobby Slowick looking to, a lot of teams are trying to steal him away and have them be his head coach. So I'm not worried. I think they're just trying to find their balance and get their legs about them. But this depth chart where you have Nico Collins, you just got Stephon Diggs, you have Tank Dell, you have Dalton Schultz, you have Joe Mixon on the ground now, another really good addition. I don't think there's any way with this talent on the roster and with their coaching staff and the way that their defense should be performing that I'm super concerned moving forward. I think it's just early on, maybe it's the pressure, maybe it's play calling, maybe it's whatever, but I'm for some reason really not worried about the Texans. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, well, one thing I am worried about is Tank Dell. I think Tank Dell's got to be involved for this offense to reach its apex of what it can be.
So how when Stephon Diggs was, and now I'm kind of just going through a thought experiment. When Stephon Diggs was in Buffalo, there, and now Josh Allen has come out and said he feels a lot more free now that Stephon Diggs isn't there, and it wasn't a dig towards Diggs. He's just saying when you have that relationship with the guy and you know that he's your wide receiver one, sometimes you do feel obligated or pressured to throw the ball to him because he wants it, because he can be a huge difference maker and a playmaker on that offense. So maybe in some regard, they're trying to force feed people and not spread the ball around as much as they could. I'm not exactly sure, but I think if they find that balance with all the talent that they have, they'll be a lot better off, because when you get everyone involved, it's hard to game plan for 4 people versus maybe the same 1 or 2 that you've watched on film. So if they spread the ball around more, I think that they'll be a lot more successful.
Got you. Okay. And Of course, Joe Mixon has been injured the last couple of weeks, and the running game hasn't necessarily been the same. So that'll be interesting to watch how they adjust there. Defensively against the Vikings, I mean, the basically the Texans have kind of been, they're right there in the game, things like that, whatever. Their defense is okay, but they were down to the Vikings, and it just seemed like the defense could not find a play to get back into this game. So is this more of just, like I mentioned, the greatest word of the show, aberration? Is this more of an aberration of them not being able to come back, or is this just a team that maybe plays better as they're more of a front runner as opposed to a team coming back into a game?
Yeah, on this side of the ball, I could be a little bit more worried. I think it is taking them a long time to really heat up and find their groove and really come up and get those stops when they need to and kind of be that wall that offenses run into. But it doesn't it won't concern me unless I see this for another couple weeks. But I don't think what we've seen is Texans' defensive identity. I think they will step it up.
Gotcha. Well, it'll be interesting how things go too. Also, when they get Danico Autry back, he's to be honest, I think he's a missing piece in the middle of that defense because right now you start Mario Edwards and Fatukasi, and I think one of those guys will be sitting on the bench when Danico Autry comes back. So that'll be interesting added because Danico is not necessarily a guy that's he's a jack of all trades. He can basically play defensive tackle. He can play defensive end. He can do all these different things. He actually played stand up 3-4 outside linebacker some with the Titans. So I think when he comes back, that'll actually add to their defense. But it'll just be interesting just to see that fit, and then also the fit at a defensive back as well. Kamari Lassiter. The teams are going to continue to try to go at him because he's a rookie and he's perceived as the weak link of the Texans secondary. So that'll be interesting as well. But of course, we've reached the end of the show, but of course there is always a game that goes along with the show. 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. You got to pick one actress. Taraji P. Henson or Regina Hall. Which one are you taking?
Oh my gosh.
And both yes, both are tied to the area that you're in.
Yes, because when you said Taraji, I was like, okay, she's gonna be my answer because she's from DC. And then you hit me with Regina. I'm like, wait a minute. No, I'm so sorry. I'm not choosing. There's no ways. You put the mac and cheese up against the yams. I'm taking both.
I gotta look to the judges. Are we gonna let her get away with 2 answers? We're gonna let you slide on this. We're gonna let you slide. The judges gave you grace on that one.
Thank
you. LA or New York? Which city would you love more? Do you love more?
I've never been to LA, so I'm gonna have to say New York.
Oh, you got to go to LA. The vibes are different out there. The vibes are totally different out there. Okay. Micah Parsons or Jalen Hurts? Which player on a rival team do you like more?
Micah Parsons. I think I have more of an affinity for his position group. I'm kind of biased towards defensive ends. For some reason, I love that position group, so I'll say Micah Parsons. Got you.
Okay. Washington quarterbacks, RG3 or Kirk Cousins. Which one did you like more as a Washington quarterback?
I liked RG3 more. Again, I'm really biased towards mobile quarterbacks. I know we haven't seen a lot of mobile quarterbacks recently find success like at the Super Bowl level and things like that. I would argue that Patrick Mahomes is a mobile quarterback, but that's a conversation for another time. But I would say RG3. He brought like a huge spark to the Redskins organization back then. But Kirk Cousins, I was kind of looking through our game notes one time, and he is all through our record books. Like his name is just everywhere throughout our organization as far as like record for this, record for that, the most this, the most that. So shout out to Kirk Cousins, but I'll take RG3.
Kirk Cobain's. There you go.
Like that. Yeah.
All right. Last question. Who wins in the dance contest? Usher or Chris Brown?
Chris Brown. Chris Brown. That was easy. Chris Brown. Shout out to Usher though. Like Usher is no slouch, but Chris Brown is really just like generational, and I will use that word, generational.
All right, now you know that word's been like overused by everybody.
Absolutely. Like the crazy buzzword. Everybody's generational these days, but if you look in the dictionary under generational, it'll show Chris Brown's picture. He's like really him for real.
Okay, all right, I'll give you that one. I'm gonna go Usher since he's around my age range. So I'm gonna go Usher. But I'll also I'll throw a little wrinkle in that one. Okay, you got Usher, Omarion, and Chris Brown. You still taking Chris Brown, or you gonna
Of
throw
those
Omarion
three?
in there? Yes.
No, I'm putting Omarion last.
Oh, okay. All right. There we go. All right now. All right. So that is the end of the show. Of course, 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. Arabia, thank you for coming on to this episode and, showing off your sports expertise. If you can, tell everyone where they can find you on social media and any other things you want to tell everyone.
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at All32 NFL. And thank you. Well, actually, and then you can also find me sometimes on Cam and Mace's show. It is what it is. And otherwise, thank you so much, Mike, for having me on touring the AFC South. I absolutely love what you have going on here. This is my 3rd time on. I've never been on anyone's program as much as yours. Definitely my favorite show to be on. Don't tell anybody that I told you that, just between me and you. Definitely my favorite show to be on. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it and really look forward to next time.
All right. Well, I thank you for coming on. Of course, I'm the host of the show, Mike Patton, as Arabia just said. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82 on. Of course, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Word to Prince. That's why I say the artist formerly known as Twitter, by the way. Okay. Of course, you can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. And of course, you can find Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And you can also see our smiling faces on YouTube with the Mike Patton Network, of course, where I have this show and I have This Woman Works, where we highlight and elevate Black women each and every week. So I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. We're out. Peace.